a question for the audience. Um, do you think the news consumer online is the same as the one on linear TV? If you think yes, he or she is the same, show me green. If you think they are substantially different, show me red. So is the viewer online the same as the one on linear TV? If it is yes, they are the same, please show me green. Can I see greens for the people who think that the audience is similar? Several. And red, please. They are not similar. You're showing me green. I don't know. It looks equal. Red is slightly higher. I think in the back you can't see the red actually. That's also the thing. Okay. So we'll get started with this. You know, the challenge of monetization has come more into focus because of online. But it isn't as if linear TV had a great time with regard to monetization. It somehow seems as if linear TV was great, but now we're having this. So Mona, let me ask you this, okay? How much has the issue of monetization changed in the last 3 to 5 years, as far as linear TV goes? Let's look at linear TV for a moment before we move to online.
Okay, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah, you have to hold it a little closer, I think.
Probably I'll go back a little 5 to 6 years behind this, because maybe more, because...
Could you hold it a little closer?
Okay, okay. Maybe, I had the opportunity of working on the other side, where people are also evaluating, and talking to the broadcasters for buying news and kind of establishing, whatever parameters of, selection and efficiencies and so on and so forth. I think it's really changed over a period of 5 to 6 years, or maybe more. Initially, I think news was seen as a very specific a category, which was reaching out to audiences who were not being reached out by many genre. So they were actually kind of getting very exclusive audiences, adding on to the base, mass channel reach. And therefore, because of that, there was a bit of a premiumness. Well, people were looking at the numbers. So there was just two aspects, numbers, but qualitative parameters also played a very big role when selection of news was really happening. And I think because of that, a lot of news channels did get, despite the fact they probably were not ranking number 1 or number 2, but yet were able to command a good pricing, primarily because of the quality of content they were kind of, delivering and putting onto the viewers. And I think therefore the qualitative aspect really was a prominent factor of selection. And basis that, the pricing and the way, the channels, for instance, or the genre was kind of, really bought and selected. I think in the last few years, and unfortunately since I have kind of come on board on this side, it's really become a commodity buying. Seriously, I think I have to kind of say that, and probably I can categorize, if I may so, categories also, especially the corporate businesses, where you have this coming in of huge procurement, who looks at everything, at one lens, doesn't look at things, from a content point of view, it's delivering to the audiences, so that everything is like on the same page, and therefore accordingly, we get evaluated as a genre. Having said that, I would say that certain categories, which probably in the retail or the, or maybe the government also probably look at us very differently because they really understand the value that the genre really brings in and the news channels are bringing in. Therefore, the pricing is a little differentiated. Okay. So I would say things have really changed over a period of a few years.
Raktim, Sidharth, would you broadly agree with her assessment of how things have changed in the last 3 or 5 years?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you have to hold it closer, I think.
Yes and no. First of all, the first thing is that, yes, if you look at both the businesses, the broadcast side of the business and the digital side of the business, two things which really comes up is that first thing is the fundamental question. So what business are we in? We are essentially in the business, if content is obviously a way of achieving the end result, which is the audience acquisition part. So if you look at from a business perspective, we are in the business of selling audiences. Now, audience is something which gives us the bread and butter in terms of revenue. Now, from a broadcast perspective, if you look at it, the audience that we deliver is something which varies from genre to genre. And when I say genre to genre, it is essentially in terms of the language and the regions that we cater to. Moment you bring in the digital aspect of the business, over there you have got a lot of tools which you could essentially use to try and segregate the kind of users that you want to target, and accordingly curate content for those audience groups. So that is where I feel, to answer your question, whether the viewer is the same or viewer is not the same, I feel digital gives you that competitive advantage in terms of the ability to identify what kind of audience you want to target and accordingly design your content strategy.
Yeah.
So with this respect, I want to bring forth one particular aspect. This entire phenomenon of Industry 4.0. Now, we have been reading about this entire concept of Industry 4.0. And if you look at the entire manufacturing industry, organizations have adopted this entire concept. Futuristic organizations have adopted this concept of Industry 4.0. Now, whether we accept it or not, but surely and it may be slowly, but then it's surely making inroads even into the broadcast and the news side of the business. So when I say Industry 4.0, it's essentially 5 pillars. One is in terms of automation. Second is in terms of big data. Third is in terms of cloud computing. Fourth is in terms of your IoT. And fifth is in terms of data management. Now, this is a scientific way of doing the business in which you try and identify various cohorts, and this gives us the ability to actually create various content for various audience group. And hence I feel, to come back to your original question, whether there is a difference in the viewer, yes, I feel while the core viewer may be the same, but if you look at the digital side of the business, technology and digital transformation, which is slowly making inroads into the newsroom, is enabling us to create different audience group, and hence I feel maybe about 40% of the audience is the same.
Okay. But actually, I was asking the audience that question, and just now we were trying to figure out whether monetization of linear TV has become harder or is it harder than it was? What do you think?
Actually, if you look at it,
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
So if you look at it, this year has been an anomaly in terms of the fact that because of the Ukraine-Russia war, the ADEX has gone down considerably, wherein advertisers are facing pressures more so from the bottom line perspective, and hence their discretionary spending has gone down. And whenever there is pressure on bottom lines...
But that is this year, right?
Yeah, but I'm just coming back. So if you look at the past 3 years horizon, and specifically from a news genre perspective, I think COVID had given the news genre a big, big boost.
Right.
In terms of the fact that it made into the plans of clients and advertiser categories where it had no role before.
Correct.
And predominantly FMCGs. And to a certain extent, services as well. So with that in mind, this year has been an off year for us, for that
But
entire...
you're saying that categories which had not considered news in the past had come, that was like a bonus and they've gone back to the...
They've not gone back. Actually, now news is featured in most of the plans because of what has happened over the past 3 years. The entire kitty has shrunk. So if an advertiser was spending, for example, rupees 100, now because of the pressure on their bottom lines, they are spending, let's say, a 70.
On news.
No,
General.
overall advertising. The advertising pie has shrunk.
Yeah, but please correct me if I'm wrong, but at least the other reports say, agency reports say that advertising growth is expected. I mean, nobody's talking about shrinking.
I think Mona will be able to answer that question.
Sridhar, can I just add on one thing to the question that you really asked and raised earlier was, that I think, again, I'll go back to a few years ago, and I think that was really the good era of news, where it was respected, for what really brought the table for the advertisers and for the campaigns, and the kind of association was able to kind of lend to the campaigns, was. But I think there is, because of so much fragmentation and because of, so much more media platforms coming in, and also because probably the share of, news at this point in time over the entire pie of the television viewership is much smaller. Therefore, the kind of due diligence or the concentration or focus given by the planners who really are our stakeholders, like Sudipto said, that he's very blunt and he's very kind of open, same as voices here. So I would say without any qualms, and probably I belong to that, was there some point in time in my life, but I believe they don't put that kind of focus to really understand, what needs to be kind of, how they need to kind of really buy it, or how they need to use it for their advertisers. And because of that due diligence not coming in, and their recommendations not going in a very fair way to the marketers, we are losing out,
Okay.
In a very big way.
Yeah, okay. I'd like to come to you, Gaurav, because he has a different perspective.
Okay, yes.
You don't have a... It's okay?
I think there are two on that table, so it's okay. Yeah.
All right. Okay, so you have a different perspective because you're into online video.
Correct.
Right? So what's your response to the conversation you just heard and the way in which advertisers look at online video?
Yeah.
Have you seen that change? Because I want to come next to monetization of online, of course, I mean, that's...
So there is a sea change, Shrikant. I mean, to tell you about how the online advertising is picked up, I don't think there's any more data that is needed. All the industry
But the bulk
reports.
of the money goes to Google and Facebook. I mean,
Yes,
that's
it
the
does.
point.
But in between whatever is left, and also between Google and Facebook, 30% of the total money is video money. Right?
Okay.
So in terms of video consumption, if you're asking, has it evolved? Has the buying changed? Has it changed for good? It's a very mixed answer. I mean,
Correct.
clearly the consumption sky high. There is far too much of supply than there is demand. So there is a big challenge. And in between that, there are platforms like YouTube and the OTTs now who are picking up a lot of that. So there is a lot of supply that is coming from there. So in between that, the advertiser has been very, very ROI specific. So earlier it used to be just the brand piece and used to come in terms of, and how well has the campaign performed. Now it is even more in terms of what is the last mile achieved, what are the conversions that have happened, what kind of, whatever end goal was set while the campaign had happened, yes.
So now I'm throwing it open. I mean, anybody could please pick up and answer. Is the challenge to monetization online any different from the challenge to monetization in linear TV? Or is it the same is it the same thing? Anyone can answer now. I'm not asking anybody specifically.
Can I?
You want to? Yeah,
See,
please.
only the metrics change. I think
Closer.
for the larger part of the business, it remains the same. While GEC might sell on a CPRP, a news channel might sell on a AR, and a digital world will sell on a CPM or a CPCV or CPT. So I think the matrix change. I think the fundamentals of the business remain the same. And it's true for not just TV versus digital, it's true for radio versus TV versus digital versus print. Okay. While print sells on square centimeters, radio sells on frequency.
Right.
So the matrix change, the fundamentals don't. That's my opinion.
Okay, Raktim?
Yeah. My sense is that if you look at digital and
Hold it close.
broadcast, so broadcast, I feel from a selling perspective, we are still selling to various advertisers from a brand perspective. So someone who advertises on a TV channel is looking at, from a frequency perspective, is looking at building reach. And if you compare that with, say, GEC, they get into the CPRP route. And if you look at digital, which is where the difference comes in. So because everything is so addressable, everything is so measurable, so every campaign that is being bought on a digital platform, you need to deliver a X amount of impressions, you need to deliver a X amount of video views. So it is very, very accountable. So from that perspective, if you look at it, you get into the larger war, which is the direct sales as well as the programmatic sales. So you will have partners who will feed in various digital platforms programmatically, and that CPM would be far, far lower than the CPM that a direct sales team will take to the market.
How much different would it be?
So
And
it's
what
quite,
factor of-
from, if I look at it from our perspective, it depends again, what is the audience that you are selling. But if you look at the audience as a generic audience, it is to the range of almost, in our case, it is to the range of almost, say, 6x. So if I, 6x. So if I,
direct sales rate would be 6x higher.
6x higher than the programmatic. For example, on our platforms, we have gone to the extent of monetizing almost about, say, 80% of the inventory through direct sales, so that our CPMs are higher. And certain months when the programmatic revenue the programmatic inventory is much more as compared to direct, then obviously your revenue will go down, because those rates, as I say, is only say X of the 6X that the direct sales team sells. So that's a huge challenge, because you have lot of brands, lot of advertisers who come in and buys programmatically, and that's where you need to bring in the differentiation. The differentiation in terms of not only the audience that you deliver, differentiation in terms of how do you get the advertisers woven around the various content genres that you have, what kind of innovation that you can deliver, and that is where ad tech comes in. That is where our sales team's ability to curate solutions for advertisers comes in. And that's a challenge. How do you take that challenge in the market? Because it's very, very addressable and it can be measured,
Yeah.
and how do you break that barrier?
What's your experience with regard to direct versus programmatic?
So very similar. Obviously, the programmatic rates are much lower. Anybody who's
But
buying
how
you
much
at
of the-
bulk.
How much of your
So
inventory?
that's anywhere between 3x to 5x is what we see, right? Depending on, so there are different partners, right? Like for programmatic, there can be a partner who's extremely niche. He will identify a set of audiences. That scale is very low, but the rate's really high, right? The overall yield, so obviously will be higher.
Correct.
Rates, depending on what kind of partner, how much are they filling and all of that will differ. Anybody who fills most will give you the lowest rate. Anybody who's filling a very niche sort of a segment will give you a decent rate. But in general, if I had to, generalize, anything between 3x to 5x is the difference between the direct sales and what you get programmatically.
Okay, so I wanted to ask a question again of all of you. Just now, if you look at viewership online viewership as a share of total viewership of linear plus online, one. What would be the share of online viewership for news of the total? And what would be the revenue from online for news at an aggregate level?
So, can I just one thing I wanted to everybody's, response to, how are we monetizing online well or not? Just one food for thought probably for everybody here. You have agencies, broadcasters, and, you have clients here. Is that, for instance, if you look at from our perspective, a network perspective, like, again, to answer your question, from television, from a linear, you are, for instance, for our network, we do about 276 million is what we reach from a linear television across the network. If I had to really add on the numbers that I get through the digital space, which is, when we are kind of, really sharing our content, on the OTT platforms, or with, or with content, aggregators, or because of, the ease of connectivity and mobile penetration, the news is now going more far-reaching. You actually add on almost 700 million more people onto my linear audiences. So that's the kind of number of people you're adding on from digital space on my linear television reach,
Okay.
And I think that is, again, like Shashi said, he passed the pressure on the broadcasters, say, collaborate and come together. But I think the measurement has to be very, very important for us to be able to, because now digital is no longer just, a medium to be used for precision targeting or measurement or customization. It actually has become a reach aggregator. It adds on reach to my linear, and I'm not able to monetize that there at all. So there's a huge leakage,
Sorry, if I could return to my original question.
Yeah.
How much of the viewership is online and how much of the revenue is from online? I'm just trying to get a sense of, I'm just
yeah.
talking video news, right?
So we don't, I'm the odd one out. We don't have a TV, a feed.
20% is, I would say, digital.
It's very difficult
Yeah.
to answer this.
Just a broad
No, if you,
Yeah,
if
it's
you,
a
if you,
rough number.
it's very difficult to answer that. But if you look at it from a revenue perspective, if you look at the digital space, I don't know, it could be slightly off here and there, but about say 75 to 80% of the digital revenue goes to the big tech players. So whether it's a Google or a Facebook, and rest of the 25-30% is what all publishers fight for. So if you compare this with television, it will be very difficult, because you are only, although probably the digital will be overtaking television this particular year, but then what publishers fight for is very
No, I
minuscule
know.
amount of the
It's
entire
an
thing.
unfair world, I agree.
It's an unfair world, and all the content gets created by all publishers, and then
But
you have the
still,
big tech
Sorry,
companies.
I have to come back to the original question. Out of 100 rupees earned by TV channels by linear and online, how much of that would be from one? Let's take a guess, come on.
It's about 20%.
20%.
You think it's
Yeah,
20%?
Yes, it's 20%.
But going forward, there has to be an integrated way of taking our solutions. Because, for example, if you look at, say, this entire connected TV phenomenon, say, right now, if we have, say, 20 million connected households, So by say 2025, you will have say 40 to 50 million. Now, how do you carry this entire thing in an integrated, unified way to the market is something which will define the future. One is not only in terms of how the sales team takes it to the market, because if I have a YouTube channel, if I have a connected, for example, in our case, we do not have an English channel. We have channels in all multiple languages. But English we haven't got into because we felt that English viewer is the discerning viewer. He is the first one to have made a transition, a migration to the handheld device. And hence we came up with a new product, which is a very innovative product called News 9 Plus. So that's our leap into the future. That's our strategy to get into the connected TV space. Now, once we get into the connected TV space, not only for English, rest of the regional language channels will also get into the connected TV space. For example, Samsung Plus or maybe, so that is where I think from a future monetization perspective, the need to have a unified currency in the market, which allows for a platform agnostic measurement tool, which allows us a particular brand's reach across multiple distribution platform is something which will define.
I don't know if you were there when Shashi was speaking, but his thing was that, listen, you guys, you know, obviously you compete with each other, okay, during the day, that's fine. But why can't you, now that digital is getting larger, why don't you consider moving to a CPM-based? Is that correct?
Yeah.
So that then TV and digital can be sold together. Were you there, Sidharth?
Yeah, I was there. My question to Shashi would be, the biggest resistance we'll get is from his teams only.
At least the ecosystem at the agency end is very different, you know. You do not have an integrated teams working there at their end itself, you know. So you have people who are kind of planning and buying, you know, on digital separate, people who are planning and buying on TV separate. So at the end of the day, you know, the stakeholders themselves who divided, how can, you know, a publisher or broadcaster go for an integrated solution? That really is one of the biggest challenges that we have
agree
ourselves.
at clients level also.
Yes, at the
I
client
mean,
level.
Sorry?
I'm saying at clients level as well, you know, the teams are divided in the sense. So it's difficult, but it should happen. I mean, look at it like this, right?
No, but
They all
then are
said
we
20
saying that the players with the greatest stake in getting it integrated are sitting on the stage? I mean, is the TV's guys and agencies and advertisers have no such interest?
So right now, if you look at most of the integrated news channels, so digital is a different business unit in itself. And if you look at agencies, for example, let's take one of the largest FMCG clients based out of North, has Group M as their digital agency and TLG as their TV agency.
Is that common? That's common. It's common. Quite common, yeah.
So the thing is, it's in one agency's best interest to push television, but it is in the best interest of the other agency to showcase digital.
What is in our interest? What's in TV channel's interest?
So a mix of both. Technically, yes.
It should be absolutely integrated. That's the way it should be integrated. That's how it's going to work for us.
Purely from a third-party perspective, I don't have a TV programming to back me up, right? I'm pure digital. But considering the reach is equivalent on TV and the digital put together, right? And the revenue is only 20%.
Absolutely.
It just makes a lot of sense to put it together, right?
Absolutely.
In terms of, especially, I think a good start point can be, you know, the clients which are not very agency heavy to bring that, you know,
in fact, the medium-sized, in fact, the medium-sized agencies, you know, the smaller agencies, you know, who probably are not as large as multinationals like, you know, a Group M or IPG, who probably can afford to have, you know, distinctive teams, you know. I mean, they are ones probably more savvier to kind of, you know, really look at this entire thing more integrated than probably the bigger agencies.
So when you go out to sell, or your team goes out to sell, you never sell it as a bundle?
Yes, we do. Actually,
But what is your pitch then when you sell?
So it's a pitch that it's not just a deliverable on TV, but TV plus digital. Actually, we recently did an IP on-ground show which was simulcasted both on TV and digital as well.
Right.
And both the teams went out and monetized the same intellectual property. And our revenue on that property was 2x of what if a digital team would have gone and sold and what a TV team would have gone and sold.
But what happens in the case of your own IP, it's always, isn't it?
Correct.
It's not the same as just selling inventory, isn't it? So what would be, I'm still kind of sorry, I'm coming back to the same thing because I think Shashi also, it was my question anyway, but Shashi also brought it up. So is there enough incentive on the TV side to try to bring these two things together?
See, if you don't, you'll be dinosaurs. because you have to develop those capabilities. No, if not now, 2 years down the line. It's coming your way, you like it or not. So might as well start working towards it.
I will tell you one more example. If you look at YouTube, so from our network perspective, we deliver almost about, say, 1.2 billion online video views across our YouTube network. Now, till about 6 months back, we used to carry the TV commercials also on the YouTube feed. Now, what we have done is that we have brought in the technology, we have started removing the TV ads on the YouTube feed. Now, that's a huge inventory available. Now, that inventory is being currently taken to the market by the digital team. But what I feel is that essentially it should be the TV team which should be taking it to the market, because it's the same set of advertisers. He's missing out on a particular audience base, but that thing needs to be built as a process, as a SOP within the media organizations. So that's an evolution which has to happen, which has already started in many organizations. TV teams are working in collaboration with the digital teams. But unless the ecosystem evolves, because when it's being taken to the market, if the buyer is saying that, look, YouTube is in the digital space, I do not decide for this, there is a separate set of stakeholders who will decide on this, then the experiment from a broadcaster's perspective or a digital platform's perspective will fall flat. So that's the key thing. The ecosystem needs to evolve on both the sides. It becomes easier on the broadcaster and the publisher side, because it's a matter of just bringing in that cohesiveness in terms of the sales approach,
And
go-to-market
you also have the
strategy.
greatest stake in this, no?
Absolutely.
You have the greatest reason to try to do it.
Absolutely. By combining both, we can have a larger share of the wallet of any customer whatsoever.
Okay. Hey, Gaurav, what kind of volume of video do you do?
So we are 100 million plus videos every month. But the challenge there, yes, but it all happens on YouTube. And it is very difficult for me to go out and sell YouTube inventory. I can do that, technically it's possible, but then I have to pay YouTube the CPMs that I don't get myself. So the challenge is, technically it is open for me to go out and monetize, but I can't monetize because the asking rate, the MG that they ask in terms of the CPMs is very, very high. So that's the challenge. You know, as a publisher, purely digital, digital first, if you may call us, right? I mean, we are a legacy print media, but this is a business which has been largely run independently for last 15 years. So we think of ourselves as digital first or the digital only company, and all our monetization efforts are towards that. Video getting so much of money in terms of, the share that it gets, in terms of growth, in terms of all revenue streams, and digital video is the fastest growing, right? For many, many years now. Some of the categories are extremely video heavy, they don't do any display or any other sort of advertising.
Sure.
So can't miss that, we have to be very, very, in there in terms of video programming. But in terms of monetization, I think it is the most challenged, at least for us being pure digital, where we do not get the video views on our platform. Right? We do, but compared to 100 million, that's not much, The scale is not there on my pages.
That must be true for everybody, isn't it? YouTube is the big one, right?
Yeah,
is the
but
biggest
we have
part.
money control. So.
You have.
So that's available only for the live streaming. So if you look at the monetization opportunities, one is your VOD content and second is your live streaming content, right? So for TV channels, that advantage is still there, because when you are doing live streaming, so whenever you remove the TV commercial ads, you fill it up with content. So that space is available for live streaming channels.
Can you ingest programmatic ads into that when you do a live stream on
So
YouTube?
you have your own CMS, so and then you can start plugging in ads.
So
but then it doesn't get filled up. It doesn't get filled up to the extent of even 5% of what the inventory is on TV.
So I think
but
it's
moment
only a
you
matter
get
of
into
time,
monetizing the VOD part, which is when your YouTube comes in. So he will say that you cannot sell below a particular rate, and he will probably sell it at a lower rate. Then how do you tackle that in the market? You cannot.
No, that's not. So that's what I'm saying. That's what the challenge is. But for live TV, connected TV feed,
For live TV, you
ingest
can still
your
do
own
that.
ads. I think
So
you're
because
sorted.
that-
There is
so-
still
so
some.
you are in full control of
light
that.
at the end of the tunnel for you. For us, it is a pure programming.
Because
which
yours is a VOD stuff.
the TV channels at
Okay.
least have a base of programming which is getting made. For us, it's a complete
Sorry,
PNL.
we are running out of time. So I have one last question for all of you. Just 1.5 minutes. I'm sorry, audience. You'll have to catch the speakers separately because we're just running out of time. I want to ask you a question. If the 5 of us were to be sitting here 3 years later, if the 5 of us were sitting here at the same stage 3 years later, I hope you'll be back, okay? Is our conversation likely to be substantially different? Answer in one sentence, because you have only 1 minute and 3 seconds. So.
See, AdX is going to move for sure. The money is going to come over from digital. TV and digital, the lines are going to be blurred.
ठीक है.
How better, how big, I don't know. I mean, it's very difficult to say because digital evolves very
Okay.
fast.
But my point basically is, will our discussion be different, do you think? Or will we still be talking the
I
same
really
stuff?
hope so. Discussion should be different than what it is right now. You know,
Or
we
they
should be
won't be
talking.
there.
Yes, absolutely. We should be talking about a seamless kind of measurement system, which helps us to kind of really evaluate and assess all touch points
Okay.
regarding news, and the delivery it gives to the audiences, and therefore the ROI kind of, you know. So I really hope.
All right, okay, Raktim.
Yeah, I think we'll have a very different scenario because if you look at it, the internet and the TV is merging. The television screen is getting into becoming a super screen. So TV screen is no longer gonna be used only for viewing content. Even commerce will start happening on the television screen.
So-
So going forward, maybe 3 years down the line, you will have a completely different scenario.
Topic altogether.
Sorry,
the whole
that's a totally
connected TV
different
thing is a
topic.
completely
I think we'll be
different
having the
topic
same.
altogether.
I think we'll be having the same conversation. We'll just add one more thing: TV, digital, and connected TV.
And connected TV, okay.
Because
so-
that's something which is gaining
So I
a lot
think
of acceptance.
Okay.
the discussion remains the same.
Okay, so I've got a sign there saying time's up. Actually, so the interesting thing that I found in this conversation is, sparked up by Shashi's discussion, is that the folks on the TV side of the business have the greatest interest in trying to get digital, sell digital and linear TV together. However, there are kingdoms. There are kingdoms in the TV business, there are kingdoms in the agency business, and there are kingdoms on the advertiser side, and all of them are split TV and digital. So we
Correct.
need to get them
It
together.
starts from the top, right?
Yeah, start from. Thank you very much. Thank you, audience.